This is Tony Candias, Chief Motivational Officer at Insurance Nerds and PNC Client Advisor at the Jacobson Group. And I am recording today on this Monday afternoon from my home base of Columbus, Ohio. We got a bunch of snow yesterday, so my goal is not to leave the apartment for the next several days. Luckily, I work from home and I even get my groceries delivered, so I don't have any travel for the next few days, so all good, all good. So today, I want to talk to you a little bit about the agency side, about the brokerage side to be exact. And I have to be very careful to put a big disclaimer up front. Never worked a day of my life in the brokerage space. Okay, I've always been a carrier side guy, but I have served brokerages in many different ways. I've served them as an underwriter, as a sales manager, through Insurance Nerds, helped them with staffing through Jacobson. So I've done a lot of things with brokerages. But there was this one time when I got tempted, and I do a lot of public speaking. And many times when I do public speaking at conferences, somebody will come over and say something like, "What is it exactly you do?" And then I'll tell them, and they will say something like, "You should be a broker. You would be $1 million broker." And my answer to that has always been, well, maybe, but that would require me giving my pretty comfortable job that I know how to do with a base salary and many other advantages and try to build a book from scratch. So I have never done it. But there was this one time I had just been downsized by American Modern in Northern California, and I met with a brokerage that has a few different locations in Northern California. And it was the only time I've ever been tempted to actually become a broker. And the reason I was tempted is because of the way they train. And so I had my interview with them, and I actually knew the person that interviewed me from my activities on LinkedIn and stuff. On top of running a brokerage, he also is involved in some other stuff within the industry. We met and we interviewed, and he had this binder. And basically what he said is, this binder is the written down, defined path to partnership in our brokerage. If you follow the path that is written down in the binder, you will be successful. Not only will you be successful, you will end up becoming a partner in this brokerage. And our record of success is, I can't remember the exact numbers, but we've had, 14 people in the last 10 years get started in the process, and 12 of them have made partner. There were two things there that really impressed me. Number one, the fact that there was a written down actual process from day one to partner. And number two, that they had a record of success with young producers following this process and becoming partners in the agency, and that they were willing to share. They're willing to let me look at the binder before further pursuing the interview process, and they were willing to share the numbers. Incredible trust built by sharing the numbers. And I thought that was very, very interesting. Also, if I'm not mistaken, it also involved a mentorship program within the brokerage that was clearly defined in the written down binder. And the other thing that was really interesting is they were very clear, we won't chase you, basically. You came in an interview today, we are not gonna call you, regardless of how well you do today, we're not gonna call you for a second interview. It's up to you, right? You're applying for a sales job. If you want it, you have to show me how persistent you are and how good you are at follow-up. And I didn't follow up because my girlfriend and I chatted about it, and we decided against me pursuing a brokerage career. The biggest thing that stopped me was we didn't want to be tied down geographically to any given area. And it was the right decision for us. But I've recommended our brokerage to many other people looking to get started in the industry as brokers, especially those who are in California or interested in working in California, because I was so impressed by that approach of a written down process. We didn't get into the details of the mentor program, but since then I've had a lot of time to think about what a mentor program should be like in the brokerage world. In my presentation about millennials, I always joke that mentoring is the number one thing that boomers can do and should do before they retire from insurance, and that carriers don't do a great job in mentoring programs. In the brokerage space that I'm not as familiar with, just by observation and following Brian Hanley and other thinkers in the brokerage space, I've come to the conclusion that well, it's clear that nobody or almost nobody knows how to recruit and properly train young producers. And it's one of the biggest problems on that side of the industry. In fact, I would dare to say that training a young producer is harder than training a young carrier side insurance professional. And thus the demographic crisis is going to hit the broker side harder. And one of the things sorely lacking is a mentor. It appears from what I've seen that many brokers out there, many agencies are still in we hire somebody that looks promising, we hand them a phone book or the modern equivalent of a phone book, and basically just go like, yep, go ahead, good luck. That's how we figured it out. And that just doesn't work anymore. And especially take into account that the kids coming in today probably have student loans. And if you have the traditional 3-year validation period, and for those of you who are not in the agency space, how that works basically is you get offered a base salary your first year, let's say $60,000 for sake of argument. Of course, it's gonna vary, but let's say $60,000. And then after the first year, it drops to 40. And you're supposed to make up the difference through commissions. And after the second year, it drops to 20. And then after the third year, you're supposed to validate and be paying yourself. I believe that number one, it's harder to sell today than it used to be. There's a lot more competition from every side. And number two, the student loans make it hard for people to take very low pay for the first few years when there are other options out there paying better. So if they can go to the carrier side and make 50 a year from the very beginning, why would they go to the broker side where on the second year they're only making 40? Producers had not that many options, and it was easier to just stick with it. But now, with student loans breathing down their neck, the chances that they can just stick with it are very low. So there's that. So I believe that a mentoring program in the broker side, you should have every junior producer, every new producer partner with a mentor. And here's the important thing, that mentor should have skin in the game. That mentor should have incentive to help the young producer, to actually mentor the young producer, because otherwise, why would they, right? If mentoring the junior producer takes the senior producer out of the field or out of selling, they're losing money. They're literally losing money. And most of them just won't do it for the love of the agency. So they need to have skin in the game. That's the biggest thing I wanted to share on that. And also, I believe that the agency validation timeframe, and I'm running out of time here as usual, that the agency validation timeframe should be increased to 5 years. And you should only hire people whom you truly believe are gonna make it, because you should be giving them 5 years to validate, because it's harder. And even better, brokerages that give them a base salary they can pay the bills with that doesn't decline, even better. But if you can't swing that, or if you think you can't swing that, then at least a 5-year validation period and a great mentoring program where the mentor has skin in the game and benefits from the mentee, even if that means sharing a bigger cut of revenue while they have a mentee. I remember when I was a fleet manager in transportation, the best way for the drivers to make money was to become trainers. And during the time that they were trainers, they had 2 logbooks, so they could drive a lot more, especially the last 2 weeks of training. And basically, the company paid the trainer their commission on everything the truck did, and then paid the trainee out of pocket, meaning out of the company's out of pocket. So it was more expensive, but it was necessary to train the next generation of drivers. So anyway, I have one more story, but I'm kind of running out of time. So I'll deal with that story later. TC out.